Hi, I'm Carla Throistwalk, and today we're going to be talking about trauma and the interaction between our mind, body, and spirit. But before we get started, a little bit about this channel. Here we share good thoughts about good words, and I publish videos about books and also Bible study videos. And in addition to that, in the past year, I started doing weekly updates about where we're at in our efforts to help some Afghan Christians escape the Taliban. So if you are interested in any of those things, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you can get updates about new videos. So this video is actually part of a series that I'm doing in lead up to our read along for Advent. I'm going to be doing a read along with Charlotte Thomason of her devotional Light in the Darkness. So these are 25 devotionals for trauma survivors. Now, you don't have to have like some big massive trauma for this to be helpful to you. As I said in the first video, all of us have been through stuff. So if you've been through stuff, then this devotional is for you. One of the interesting things I've discovered since we made a plan to do this read along is just how literal it is when they say trauma is stored in the body, like just how literal that is. So back in January 2020, I did a reading vlog of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It was kind of like the beginning of God's training program for me, about the interaction between form and spirit. I don't know if you've ever had a thing like this where God, he's kind of like Mr. Miyagi, and he's put you in all these weird situations to help teach you a thing. That's really what these last few years have been. It's been God teaching me about the interaction between form and spirit. And it started with The Hunchback of Notre Dame, because that's what that book showed to me. It made me understand what James, faith without works is dead, because there is this interaction between form and spirit, between what we do and our spiritual state. And over the past couple of years, I've done a lot of interviews with trauma survivors. So this has just all kind of been a process. It's also kind of played a role into just kind of my understanding of like when I've been teaching classes with and interacting with the Afghans, because I have to remember, number one, they are coming from a culture where Christianity is very underground, and this corporate spiritual formation is something entirely different, right? Just as a culture. They've been in stress for years now because they've been in exile basically in Pakistan and been under extreme stress. And so all of these things factor into responses, and we are not just disembodied minds, we are incarnate beings, right? We are tripart beings. We have mind, body, and spirit, and those things interact with each other. And it's not like I didn't know this, but it wasn't until just recently like I realized how literal this is. So years ago, I was in a prayer ministry where the primary thing was we prayed for healing. And when I went through the training there, what they taught us then was if you go through a traumatic event, a lot of times a chronic illness will pop up like between 6 and 18 months afterwards. So when we were in the prayer ministry, people would come in for a specific thing. The main person that was praying for them would have a discussion with them, and usually the conversation would lead into the Holy Spirit would highlight an event in the person's mind. And a lot of times there would be somebody that they needed to forgive about the event to really release the spiritual trauma for that. And there was this connection once that was released. I think I've shared this story before. There was a lady that came in for prayer for her knee. She had rheumatoid arthritis, and we didn't even pray for her knee at all, I don't think. Just a conversation led to some other traumatic events that had come through, and then once she released that trauma and through forgiving the people involved, I can't even explain to you what the feeling was. It was like the spiritual jam just like broke loose. I mean, I can't even explain it other than that. It was one of the times when I can say absolutely that you literally feel the deliverance there. It was just a thing was released and the bonds were broken. And we forgot to pray for her knee. And then the next day I called her, I said, how's your knee? She's like, oh, I didn't even pay attention. It's like totally fine. So this bitterness and this tension it was connected to that rheumatoid arthritis. And some people may say, oh, that sounds a little, you know, I mean, dismiss that. But you know what? It's actually true. And I mentioned this before. There's a segment that Charlotte Thomason and Jesse Childress did in our launch party for the Saints and Sanctuary issue of an Unexpected Journal. And they were talking about finding sanctuaries, making churches safe places for trauma survivors. But what they talked about a lot was how the body stores this trauma. That's one of the things that Bessel van der Kolk talks about in his book, The Body Keeps Score. I mean, this isn't like some crazy charismatic thing. Science has said the same thing. So I knew this, but I wasn't really thinking about specific spots in your body. And this YouTube video came across my feed, and there was a lady that was talking about the connection between trauma and physical problems, different physical ailments in the body. And she worked at it from the body side. And she would like do massages and help people release trauma in physical locations in their body with prayer or counseling. You know, they're working with the mind, as you know, working with the spirit, but she was taking it with the body side. She's working on helping people release physically. This other video that came up, and it was a different person basically talking about the same thing about the fascia system. And she was talking about how you can map trauma in your body, like going through and doing like deep massage, and then sit and reflect, like what is coming to your mind? What is the feeling that you have? You know, what is that feeling tied to? I was like, oh my gosh, because it was connected to what I had learned in the prayer ministry. And so I experimented with that because I had been walking a lot in the past year, and I also started stretching. So I used to dance, so I know how to stretch, and I know where my flexibility should be, and it hasn't been there in a long time. And one of the things I could not figure out was I would be doing stretches, and I never felt like I was progressing in the stretch. I always felt stiff. I always felt really stiff. I have another part of the story that I'll talk about in my next update, but I was reading about if you do massages, it can kind of help relieve this trauma and stress. And so I was massaging like the top of my right leg, because it's my right side is like super stiff, and I don't know why. I actually did when I was in my 20s and dancing. I pulled something in my right leg, but usually the stiffness had never been like that before. So I was massaging like the top of my thigh. Oh my goodness. It was like I could just feel the stress release. I mean, like, this is where I hold my stress, the tops of my legs. And so it's actually a real thing. And so you may say, well, what does this have to do with your Advent read along? I mean, the thing is, Jesus came so our joy may be full, right? So we could have peace that passes all understanding. And there's things that, these hang-ups in our life that we don't get rid of, and there are issues that we don't deal with. And when we don't want to deal with the trauma, when it's like too much and we want to push it under the rug and just not look at it, it's going to come out somewhere else. It will come out in like illnesses in our body, or pain somewhere, or it's going to come out in addictions, or maybe overeating, or other behaviors. It's going to come out somewhere. We don't deal with a mess, it's going to come out in another area. The devotional that Charlotte wrote is designed to be a gentle walkthrough of examining maybe some of the things that we need to release, some of the things that are keeping us from really truly experiencing God's love for us, from experiencing the joy that He wants us to have, especially during the holiday season, because sometimes the holidays are times when these past issues can crop up. Maybe you're somebody that thinks that you don't have issues to work through, but if you're like me and you have some things that you're dealing with physically that don't really make sense, so why am I doing all this stretching and not seeing any progress? Well, it's because I was holding on to some stress. About our Advent devotional is we're going to be doing a kickoff live stream on Sunday, November 26th at 8 p.m. We're going to be doing a wrap-up live stream on January 7th, 2024 at 8 p.m. The first day of the read along obviously is going to be on December 1st, and the last day of the read along will be on the 25th. But we're going to be doing weekly Zoom calls starting on December 7th at 8 p.m. This is a Thursday, and the dates are going to be on the 7th, the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th. So if you'd like to join us in the read along, just pick up a copy of the devotional pretty much wherever you like, but if you buy it on my website at racetowalk.org, when you buy the paperback, you'll get a free copy of digital version, and this is only available on racetowalk.org, and I can do that because I published it. So get a copy of the devotional, and then you can register for the read along for free. And once you register, you'll be getting a link to the live streams as well as the links for the Zoom call. And you will also get a link to a private Facebook group where we're going to be just doing a discussion as we're reading through it. And Charlotte is also offering a discount on her memoir, What Kind of Love Is This?, to people who register for this read along. So if you'd like to join us, be sure to pick up a copy of the devotional and then also register for the read along. And if you have like a group that you'd like to do this with, either with a group of friends or a group at your church, be sure to pass this information along, because I think this is going to be an awesome opportunity to really not only go through the devotional, but also to get some insights from the author themselves about how what she's talking about in the devotional worked for her in her life. This year would be a great year to start clearing out the clutter and getting rid of all that emotional baggage that's been weighing you down. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.